Hello again. I want to talk to you about some more wonderful dolls. The title of the catalog for the dolls I'm going to be speaking about today is In All Ways Remarkable, a wonderful description that most collectors could think would describe their collection. Every time they walk in the room and they look at these many wonderful faces, they think in all ways remarkable. Well, this is what Mark Twain used to describe the Mississippi River in one of his books that he wrote. The Mississippi River went through Vicksburg, Mississippi, and in Vicksburg, Mississippi, there was designed and created a wonderful doll museum that lasted for several decades. And many of the dolls in the collection we're showing are from that wonderful museum. So we borrowed Mark Twain's phrase about the Mississippi River in all ways remarkable to describe the dolls that will be in this catalog, many from that wonderful Vicksburg museum. I thought we'd start with the earliest period of dolls first and show you some of the wonderful examples that we have. This is an area of collecting that had really been forgotten by most collectors for many years. A few stalwart people continue to seek them out and look for them, but other collectors wanted to have more of the very glamorous and beautiful French dolls or the German character babies. Of late, I'm so happy to say that many collectors are moving back into these early dolls, which bridge a long period of time, really. They can go from the mid-1700s right on up through, if you want to count American folk art, right on up through, say, like the 1910s, 1920s. Lots of great possibilities there. It takes adventure, it takes a good eye, and it takes a willingness to overlook what one might call perfection in a doll, because what you want to find most in these early dolls will be originality. You don't want dolls that have been repainted, reworked, even though it might have made them prettier at one point to wipe away their flaws. They're kind of like people. As they get older, you know what? Go with it. Go with the charm and the beauty that they have with their age. So we'll just start, and I'll just kind of run through some of the ones that are going to be in this auction, and I just hope so many of you will be able to come and see them in person, because they exude this feeling of history that really, it's a very tactile kind of sensation. Looking at it on screen or in a photograph is never the same thing as actually being there and really almost like communing with the object. It's wonderful, large pieces. There's so much research that's being done. I keep talking to you about the Sieslicks in Germany, who were the first people who did great research on German dolls, and they are currently working on their revised edition of the German Doll Encyclopedia. And any of you who want to send me emails and tell me to forward it on to them, I will be happy to do it and say, let's get this book published. We need it. One of the things that Marianne has worked very hard in the past few years is more research on the German paper mache and wooden industry, and lots of good surprises finding there. One of the elements that has to have more research done is a connection between the German and the French doll industries. Went on for over a century, but certainly at this early period of time, we have the paper mache probably made by Voigt, who was basically a German, but who went eventually to France and created paper mache heads. Now, how you can tell which are German and which are French? Well, I'm kind of simplistic. One of the easier ways is what kind of a body do they have? This one has a German body. It has the very early carved wooden limbs, but even though she has this very elegant French-like expression, and I want to turn her because lots of times I think we neglect to look at the profiles of these dolls. And in their profile you can see so many wonderful details. And I'll turn it all the way around because I also want you to notice that what does she have? She has a painted black pate. She has a solid domed head with painted black on it, painted solid black, and then designed to have a wig put on. And in this case has these wonderful tight little braids. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but her beautiful early hair. And if I can pull it back just a little, you can see how beautiful the feathering and the line is done. And I think that was served sometimes as a guide to the person putting on the wig of where the lines of the wig should go. Very elegant lady with her long throat. So, in these, I love this little guy. Look at this. They show up so seldom. And I'm just realizing he's in here backward because his beading is at the front. And it's just like a little walker that still is being made today. But here it is back in the early 1800s, a little boy, and check out his head. That's not my hand shaking, that's his little nodding head on a pin dowel through the neck and his little hinged legs. So imagine a child playing with this wonderful little piece. And imagine it just being in your house, because I think they are so precious and they're so impossible to find. Let me turn it so the camera can pick it up on all sides. What a sweet child. I think even if you can just find the walkers, this one is all original, but even if you could just find the walkers, if you have a walker and then you have a little tiny baby that you put in there, it's wonderful. We have a great pair. They're really not a pair, but they kind of belong together, of this gentleman and woman. And they're both in what are termed the Grodnertal era of Germany, the wooden dolls. She has what is called the yellow tuck comb. I call it a tucked comb because it's tucked into the hair. But and then she has her original earrings, original painting. And look at the shape of her face. Very, very distinct, almost like a, well, look at her from the side. This woman she's a serious woman, let me put it that way. Very, very strong jawline, very strong chin, very strong nose. And look at the detail of the hair around her face, that wonderful feathering. This is a really beautiful doll. And here's her fellow, here's her guy. He has great hair also. I personally think she's a little more handsome than he is, but whatever. They kind of belong together in my mind. And he has his wonderful original costume as well. His hair has shades of brown, which is a little more unique than just having the black hair. It's like a little shading on it. Let me turn it around a little more. You can see in the curls in the front. It's an interesting hairstyle. And then I wanted to show you, we have, this is one lot in the auction, and this is why I kind of kept them together so you could see all of them. In this auction, we have wonderful doll furniture, some really good early pieces. And this is a tilt-top table, and sitting on it are some series of wonderful little dolls. Here's a little miniature Grodnertal doll with a dowel jointing at the shoulders, the elbows, the hips, and the knees. So dainty and so intricate to make. And she's sitting on a little quill rocking chair, beautifully done. And then two other early Grodnertals in their original costumes, and so well preserved because they've been in these domes the entire time. Let me see if I can take them out of the domes, and then you could perhaps see them a little more closely. And then we'll turn her around so you can see she's about 4 inches tall. This is a tiny, tiny little doll. And I don't think it's surprising how hard it is to find these dolls because they're so tiny. I would imagine that they were the kind of things that could have disappeared over time, got tucked in a corner of the attic, and no one ever found them. But here we're lucky to have these few examples that have been saved all this time. And here is the other one. She's very, very interesting costume on her. I always love the stories about Queen Elizabeth, that she had so many of these dolls as a child. And I'm sorry, Queen Victoria. And she was taught how to make the costumes for them by one of her nannies that took care of her as a child. And she just had so many of them. And most of them are in the Victoria and Albert Museum in England now. So any of you who ever get a chance to go there, you do want to see these. Here is another example of a papier-mâché that was made for the French market. And again, how we know that this was made for the French market, when I talked before about bodies, you can see it from the body. This is a kid body in the same style as the French bisque poupées that appeared perhaps 15 or 20 years later. Very, very tightly stuffed, fashionable kid body with a shapely waist and well-rounded buttocks, let's call it that, and designed to be an adult lady and wearing adult clothing. And in this case, she's wearing an original French folklore costume from the Ile de Ré. One of my favorite books I ever worked on was French Dolls and Folklore Costumes. This was such an important feature of the French society in the 1800s, were women that wore costumes that signified their particular area. Most important element of all of the costumes was the coif. The coif would signify the region they came from, the position in society they held, sometimes what the event would be, whether it was a wedding, for example, or some other celebration. And this particular beautiful lady, in she's condition is superb. Understand, this doll is, let me do the math, say 1840, so what do we have? Do the math for me there, 180 years old, is that right? This is an old doll, and look at the condition and how it's been preserved. To find a doll like this today is almost a miracle. It really is. Maybe my math was off, by the way. Don't hold me to it. Okay, this is another great doll, and this is what I meant before when I said that people who have started to collect early dolls have, hopefully, they've learned to leave them alone, let them live with their age lines and their little issues, because they are old. And this one is, let me point out and turn it around. You'll see this line across her back, her craze line. So there it is, that's original. But she has her original German body with the slender kid body and the carved wooden lower arms and legs. And then look at the rare features. She has this sculpted hair with the comb on the top and the braids in the back. And what color is her hair? Brown, not black, brown. Very distinctive color. And finally, turning it around, the extra two features that are so important. This is real hair at the front, tiny little curls made of real hair that exactly match the color of her hair. Very, very rare doll. I think we've only had one other example of this type. There are several more wonderful paper maches in this auction, and here's one more of the little ones that I wanted to show you, because she has, again, great, you're looking at her and you're saying, oh, those beautiful curls. I love her curls tumbling onto her shoulders. And then I'm going to turn it to the side, and you're going to see, oh, well, it doesn't go all the way around her head. No, they take the hair at the back and they rolled it into like a chignon, and there it is. Very, very beautiful style. And here's what else I love about this girl. When you can find them, original costume, perfectly preserved, absolutely superb little paper mache doll. You probably noticed on the table here some wonderful pieces of furniture, and that was something I'm really delighted about. In this auction, we have just some great pieces of furniture, some European, some American, in some of them like actually little child-sized chairs with wonderful stenciling on them. And I just brought out two pieces I wanted to show you that I found, to me, okay, if I was collecting, these would be things that I would buy, because I just love the charm of this piece. It had beautiful, beautiful carving on it, the wonderful chest. And then I wanted to show you this piece in the chouinazuri style, a little étagère. I'm going to rest it on top of here for a moment, and look at the fine little points, the little daintily pointed finials. They're just absolutely wonderful. And then I'm going to flip it towards you, because I want you to see, this is why you should come to the auctions. Just forget if you're going to buy or not. Just come to look at these things, because they will really reach out to you. This is not just painted on, it's like raised designs on there. Raised designs and then beautifully painted of birds and foliage. It's just wonderful. The chouinazuri movement and the Japanese, the feeling for Japanese art really pervaded much of Europe during the second half of the 1800s, and these styles became very, very dominant, and they're just beautifully done. And then in this section, even though this girl is from a little later, to me she kind of falls within the period of the feeling of the wooden dolls. And this is a Pedlar doll made with a bisque-headed lady. That's unusual. Usually they're wooden. And I don't know, I think I'll lift the dome off, because then I think you'll be able to pick up a lot more of the little details of all of the wonderful pieces that this woman is holding. Her main feature, she was a doll peddler, and she's holding wooden dolls, bisque, china, little guys with molded caps, very, very rare little tiny ones. And I'm going to put it down now. I'm going to turn it because I want you to see that her wares, her wonderful doll peddler wares, go all the way around the sides. Except, I'll move that, except for the back of the table where she's standing. And I'll show you the one I like the best. I like these. There's two little men here with striped shirts and little molded caps, and I think they're carved wood, and they're absolutely wonderful. So if I was going to her peddler shop, I'd probably be negotiating with her on those. But there she is, perfectly preserved in her wonderful cabinet. And then finally from this time period, I do want to show you this. It's not from this time period. This is a very, very early piece, a very fine automaton. Very simple, heavy. This is, I don't know, I didn't weigh it. But I think you could, I bet this weighs 10 or 15 pounds. It's a heavy, heavy piece. And the camera's going to show you some of the mechanism inside. Very, very intricately done. Carved wooden. And it was featured in some of the early books on automatons. And in one of the early books, this writer said that he went to view this great collection this person had, and this, out of all of the pieces he had, this was the one he spotted and said, this is one of the most remarkable pieces of mechanical work that has been done. Understand, at the time that these were being made, there was not that much being done in the way of mechanical. People were just starting to learn about gears and things. So let me turn this around. Let me kind of lift up this original gown, and you can see the works. You see the 3 gears. It has its original key with a big note on it. Be sure to wind backwards. Okay, and then you saw how the mechanism was working with all of these intricate gears. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece.